They dragged my suitcase across the front lawn and dumped it in the grass while the neighbors filmed, and just when I thought it could not get any worse, a white limousine rolled up and stopped right beside the pile of my life. My adoptive mother was laughing. My adoptive father was on the phone inviting people to come see what happens when you raise an ungrateful child. My brother and sister were live streaming the whole thing, and I was standing there barefoot and shaking in front of a house that suddenly did not feel like home at all. Then the back door of that limo opened, and the man my family called my broke coffee shop boyfriend stepped out in a groom suit holding a wedding dress, and every single person on that street went silent. If you think that sounds like a movie, I get it sometimes, even I replay it, and wonder how it was my life, but it was. And my name is Rachel. And that was the afternoon everything finally snapped into place. I was 7 when George and Margaret Hamilton adopted me, and at first I honestly believed I had won the jackpot. They already had 2 kids, Sophia and Brandon, and in photos we looked like a perfect success story. The generous millionaires and the grateful orphan, and I worked hard to fit that role. By 16, I understood I had not been adopted because they were overflowing with love. I had been adopted because I fit their brand. Out in public, I was proof of their kindness, but inside the house I was more like unpaid staff with a nicer bed. Sophia got new outfits every season. I got her hand-me-downs, and a reminder there was a roof over my head. Brandon got a car when he turned 18. I got a speech about responsibility and a stack of paperwork for the family company. I handled schedules and emails and invoices. But when I finally asked if I could get paid like an actual employee, Margaret gave me that tight little smile and said, "We gave you a home, Rachel, that is payment enough." So I did what a lot of kids like me do. I started tutoring neighborhood kids, sliding bills into a jar in the back of my closet. Not quite a plan, but at least a possible exit. One night, George called an emergency family meeting, and when I walked into the living room, there was a stranger sitting in his favorite chair, older, expensive suit, patient smile, the kind of man who looks at everything like an investment. George introduced him as Lawrence Sterling, said he had agreed to put $50 million into the company, then added like a footnote that in exchange I would marry him. For a second, I honestly thought it was a sick joke. I laughed, looked around, waited for someone to react, but nobody did. Margaret leaned forward with that soft voice she used for cameras and said this would save our family, that Lawrence was respected, and I would never want for anything, while Lawrence looked me over and said, "She will do nicely." My heart dropped. I stood up and said, "The only thing I could live with, no. I am not for sale, I am a human being." The room went cold. George's face went red, Sophia was smirking like she was watching a show, and Brandon quietly lifted his phone and hit record. I should have stopped there, but years of swallowed anger came boiling up, and before I could stop myself, I said, "And anyway, I am already in a relationship. His name is Adrian, and he actually loves me." Sophia burst out laughing. "Adrian, that broke guy from the coffee shop where you waste your time, you have to be kidding," she said. Margaret's hand came out of nowhere and slapped me across the face so hard my eyes watered, and she hissed that I was going to destroy everything they had built. George stood up, voice flat, and said I had 1 hour to agree to marry Lawrence, or I could be out of his house with whatever I could carry. I looked around that room at the art and the furniture and the people who had been calling me daughter for almost 15 years, and something in me finally clicked. I told them I would rather have nothing than sell myself to fix their mistakes. Then I turned and walked upstairs to pack. I threw a few things into a suitcase with shaking hands and tried to breathe, and that is when they came after me. Sophia yanked clothes off hangers, yelling that everything in the closet had been hers first. Brandon grabbed my suitcase, dragged it to the window, and tossed it. I heard it explode open on the lawn. Margaret's voice floated down the hallway, telling George to call the neighbors, the staff, anyone who should see what happens to ungrateful children. A few minutes later, they were hauling me back down the stairs, and then I was standing on the front porch, in the bright afternoon sun, while they threw the rest of my things out onto the grass. My clothes and books and photos were landing in the dirt. People from the other houses drifted over with their phones out. Sophia stood on the steps like she was giving a statement, telling everyone I had refused to do one simple thing to help the family. Brandon was narrating for his followers, calling me their charity case and telling people to tune in for the drama. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my phone, but I did, and I called one person Adrian picked up on the first ring. He said my name, heard my breathing, and his whole voice changed. "Rachel, what is going on?" And I managed to get out. "They kicked me out. I have nowhere to go." His answer was simple and firm. "I am 10 minutes away. Do not move. Just hold on." The call ended, and before I could even put my phone back, Sophia snatched it away and laughed. "Were you calling your poor boyfriend? What is he going to do? Take the bus up here and help you carry your trash bags?" People snickered, and I remember staring at the grass and thinking, this is how they want my story to end. Then I heard it, this deep engine sound getting closer, and the laughter faded. A long white limousine turned onto our street, followed by a line of black cars, and they moved so smooth and controlled it felt like the whole block was holding its breath. The chauffeur stepped out, opened the back door, and Adrian stepped onto the sidewalk, not in his coffee shop shirt, not in beat-up sneakers, but in a white suit carrying a champagne-colored wedding dress that caught the light. He walked straight toward me like there was no one else there. Adrian stopped in front of me, took a breath. Then in front of everyone, he dropped down on one knee. My brain just froze. He looked up and said, "Rachel, I am sorry I did not tell you everything." My full name is Adrian Westbrook, and the crowd reacted like someone had flipped a switch. Phones shook, someone gasped. Brandon said, "Adrian Westbrook, CEO of Westbrook International," like he could not believe the words, and all at once the broke coffee guy my family mocked turned into the billionaire every single person on that street knew from the news. Adrian took my hand and kept talking, saying he loved that I never asked what he did for a living, that I split the bill, that I cared more about how he treated the waitress than what he drove. He held up the wedding dress and said he had planned a whole beach proposal for next month. But when he heard my voice on the phone, he realized I did not need perfect. I needed to know my worth was not something they could auction off. Then he opened a ring box, showed me a blue diamond that looked like a piece of sky, and said, "Marry me right now, right here. Let them see that you are not their property, that you are priceless, that you are my choice if you will have me." I was crying, my legs were shaking, but when he asked if I loved him and if I trusted him, the answers were yes and yes, before I even thought. So I said yes right there on the same lawn where they had thrown me away. Yeah, that happened. The sound that came from the street felt like the world turning over. People were clapping, some cheering. The housekeeper was crying, happy tears, and the Hamiltons were frozen on the steps. Then more doors opened, and a small team stepped out, and they rolled out a white runner over the grass, cleaned me up, zipped me into that dress, and a short while later I was standing under that same sky, saying vows to a man who had chosen me when I had nothing, getting married right there on the street while the neighbors watched. After the ceremony, he pulled out his phone again, still standing on that white runner, and called his office on speaker. He told them to cancel any deals involving Hamilton Real Estate and Lawrence Sterling, to put out a statement that Westbrook International would not partner with companies that treated people like collateral, and to move on buying up the Hamilton company's debt while it was cheap. Margaret sat down on the steps. Sophia was screaming that this was supposed to be her life. Brandon was trying to delete the videos he had posted, but the internet had already done what it does. Months later, front of what Adrian predicted has happened. The company collapsed. The mansion was sold to a young family with adopted kids, and the Hamilton name that once meant power in that city now mostly shows up in stories like this. Sophia works retail. Brandon struggles to get hired because that video of him laughing while I am thrown out is the first thing that appears when you search his name, and Lawrence is busy with investigations into his business practices. I started a nonprofit for foster and adopted kids so they hear early that their value is not defined by how useful they are to someone else's image, and I am building a life where I do not wake up every day wondering if I should be more grateful for being tolerated. The Hamiltons send cards, now long handwritten apologies and holiday greetings, and I look at the envelopes, feel nothing. Write return to sender, and go on with my day. Some bridges really are safer burned. So that is my story, at least the version I can tell here. And I am curious what you think. If you were in my shoes, would you ever forgive people who treated you like a prop once they finally realized what they lost? Or is walking away the only way to stay sane? Do you think Adrian went too far, trashing their reputation and their company in public? Or was that just karma showing up in a nice suit? Have you ever had to choose yourself over the people who were supposed to love you? Tell me in the comments, argue with me, share your own story, because I read everything, and maybe some kid out there standing alone on a front lawn right now will hear what you say and realize they are not crazy for believing they deserve better.